I'm very excited for my guest I have coming on tonight. A good friend of mine, someone I work closely with. I'll put that out there up front. And I like his vision for where the industry's going. And we're going to talk about music business tonight. So I've spoken to musos, I've spoken to marketing people, and but tonight we're talking about some music business as well. But before I bring him on, a couple of things I just want to round about. Hang on, my camera's doing wonky things here. Here we go. There we go. A couple of things I just want to chat about before I bring him into the conversation so it doesn't reflect on him. Um, Tuesday night Tuesday night past, I did one of my Tuesday night rambles, and I focused a lot of that about my first why how I got into China and my journey into China. For those who don't know, I spent 10 years doing stuff in China and had 32 trips over there, and uniquely was still, I think, the only Western artist in the world to get to number 3 on their radio chart singing in Chinese. Now, no big artists have got there with, Madonna and that with their normal hits, but I did some stuff singing in Chinese, which I think is I'm the only guy to do that as far as I know. But I got to see a lot about what's going on in China, and my reference for leading in with this is that I got some friends here at the moment who are trying to get some rental houses. They're working on rental stuff, and it's insane what's going on with our property market at the moment. And I don't want to seem like I'm just waving the China flag, but every country you go to, you see things where what's going on. They've got bad things over there, they've got good things over there. One thing that's good over there is they put a real focus around 2011 onwards in making home ownership a priority. So President Xi came in, he brought in things that were about disincentivizing investment into houses, certainly encouraging investment into development and things like that of new properties. But into houses, they were making that harder to invest in, encourage people to invest their money instead into like stock markets and businesses, startups, venture capital, all that stuff. And they're at a point now where they've got over 90% home ownership in China. It's supposed to be the communist place, right? 90% home ownership. I just think as Aussies, we need to take a deep breath and say, every Aussie family should own their home. How do we get there? Okay, is it going to hurt some development companies along the way? Yeah, sure. But how do we offset that by giving those companies incentives, tax incentives to build new places? How do we still encourage international money to come into our country, but not to buy houses, but to buy new premises that they have to sell? They can't just stick them there as things that they wrap up the rentals all the time for people, because it's just getting insane, folks. It's insane. The second thing I saw happen in China was when I first went over there in 2006, the music industry and the entertainment industry was all government subsidized. Even their really big artists, they didn't sell CDs. They were like kind of employees in the sense of the big major companies, and they get paid really good money. But they get paid and they make their albums, and the albums pretty much were sold for, maybe $5-6 to the guy selling them on the corner, because the artist didn't own them anymore. They got their thing was, you make the music, you get paid for the music and all that. Bad model from a musician's point of view. I get that. But when they brought in around that same time, 2011, the new normal, they called it, which was about they'd built up their big cities to be the middle class in their big cities became much better off. The mass percentage of the population was still in rural areas, and they'd been left behind, and they had to find a way to build up that economy. Instead of trying to build infrastructure everywhere, they built a lot of that growth around the digital economy. And in doing that, they made the arts and entertainment and the digital sector one of the 5 pillars of their economy. Now, here in Australia, we look at our arts sector and our music tech sector as something that needs to be propped up by grants and, everything else. It should be a main driver of domestic spending, which is what they did in China, trying to all their digital content and all their creatives, from music to film and everything else, they made a driver of their economy. And they built the digital infrastructure. So across the whole nation, if you're in the most remote places, you could get all digital content, but you could also buy anything that you could buy in Beijing and have it delivered to you on that same day. And if you're running a business in a rural sector, you're able to market your business into the major cities and build the economy around that digital sector. I believe we should be doing that, and a big player in that is our music sector. We've been always battered above our league as far as the music we could create here, and we should be looking at it as a resource sector, not just an arts sector. So it should be something that drives our domestic spending, but also is a major export product. And in doing that, a major attractor investment into our country for that sector. We should be the driver for the Asia Pacific region in the music and arts sector. With that in mind and that statement, which I strongly believe in, something I will try and talk to every politician I can to change their focus about. Don't just look at this as something that you give, $10 million worth of grants to and say you're helping out, but you don't actually build our industry. Help us become self-sustainable. The only way we're going to do that also is by having people in our industry who know how to do the job, who know the realities of the game and know how to make it work. Hey, quick commercial break. Big shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, which is me, Nik Phillips. Look, I've got to thank myself so much. I couldn't be doing the show without me. And if you get a chance, check out the sponsor's website, www.nikphillips.com. Check out my music, my videos, my bio, all that stuff, and maybe contact me and book me for a gig. That would be great. But thanks, Nick, for your sponsorship. Back to the show. And my guest tonight is one of those guys who's been to me, one of the big visionaries in how that all can happen. Nathan Ward, mate, welcome to Aussie Local and Live, mate. How are you?
Hello, mate. That was a scary intro to come in on, Nick.
Yeah, just to lighten the mood a little bit, Man, I really believe that. I think that we got to find a way to get our industry looked at as something it's like the coal sector. It's like any other sector. We're a resource. Digital content is one of the biggest selling content items in the world, and we do it really well, but we don't get government support in developing that. We have people within the industry who want to develop that, but we need help in doing that, like every other industry needs help. But mate, in saying that, first of all, we'll get to the deeper levels of that a bit later on. I'm sorry for going dark side so early, but it's not really dark side. It's just some stuff I'd seen going on in the around the last couple of days, and I like to have my say. That's what my little podcast is for, to ramble on as I do.
Absolutely.
But mate, so how did a surfer and football player get into music?
I just figured it was going to be better than digging holes, Nick.
I believe you dig holes every day for yourself now, mate. So
Yeah, with the missus, yeah, constantly. But now, as you know, Nick, you know my dad. I'm a third generation muso. My grandmother was uh famous opera singer from Sydney.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, sang at the Opera House. She was Joan Sutherland's main understudy for most
Oh
of her
wow.
stuff. Um, so she was the one that kind of started it, and then, as you know my dad, Nick, and you
Of course,
guys play
Mr.
together.
Ross Ward, the great Mr. Ross Ward.
I think you've had him on here once, so I don't know why he got on here before me.
I mean, it was a demand from women asking for him to come on.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But yeah, him and my uncle were the founding members in a band called Blackfeather, that wrote Bop and the Blues and a whole bunch of 60s, 70s Australian original blues rock stuff. And then, so I kind of I watched both of those guys create their career. Um, and I just got to an age where football was no longer a reality for me. Had some knee issues and stuff. And uh, I was already playing in bands through school and stuff, and with a great mate of mine, Cass McMahon. And just seemed like the coolest thing to do at the time, mate. Like it just, yeah, there was. It's kind of going to sound weird, but like most of us, when it bites you, you sort of know. I knew when I was, I think about 6.5, and I heard this band on this poster behind me for the first time.
Mhm.
And Rose Tattoo, I got this. My dad had given me an Albert's record label compilation, and I'd listened to that. Then got home, and my sister had a, I don't know what they were called back then, but like So Fresh or whatever
Yeah,
the
the
compilation.
compilation albums. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the early '80s, and You Shook Me All Night Long was on that. And I've just been listening to this band on their older stuff with Bon Scott, and I sort of knew. I knew from then, mate. There was I had the bug, and um, for a long time, I was more interested in sitting in my room and learning how to play the new AC/DC, Metallica, Stevie Ray Vaughan albums. I was more interested in that than everything else. And
Mate, talking about that poster behind you and that song shook me all night long. Your business partner, Carl, he's going to love this little statement that I've been putting together a one-man country show as with what I do. And I have a country version I do in that show. It shook me all like long that I'm desperate to play to Carl just so he can enjoy that moment, you know?
yeah, he's a funny boy, mate. He's a
Yeah. Mate,
oh, one
Carl's not a big country fan, folks. I just put that out there. That's what I'm saying there. And I'm just doing
yeah.
that to give him a hard time.
Although, I think we're slowly starting to win him over. We were in Tamworth this year, and he wore a John Deere hat around everywhere, and then all of a sudden would watch him tap and nod his head to different things. So
Mate, he's got the beard for it. He's got the beard to be like the Luke Combs generation. He pretends he isn't, but when someone dresses himself up to look just like those rock gods in the country world, obviously he's got an underlying issue that he's trying to deal with.
absolutely, he's a closet. He's a
Willie
closet.
Nelson fan.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, he doesn't love Willie Nelson, bro.
exactly. That's what I open my show with. Actually, I'll go run you through the list yet, but my first song is On the Road Again. That's where I go from. But
Awesome.
because my guitars pretty much have holes worn in them, almost like Willie's as well. But mate, talking about guitaring, so before we'll get to you in the business world and like kind of Mr. Mega Business Guy, but we'll stick to the plan for a while, and I can attest to everyone that you're a wonderful guitarist, mate. Really good guitarist. You've played with artists such as Nick and Tuffy on recordings.
Yes.
Yeah, you work with the Credence show, you do, but bands before. But mate, you've even worked with people like Mick Fleetwood along the way and others like that, right? Angry Anderson and who are some of the other dudes you've worked with?
Oh, I don't know, Nick. It's a bit of a blur, and I find it hard to kind of, I don't know why, sort of talk about the successes of some of the pinnacle stuff. I've always sort of found that hard. Um,
Yeah, mate, this is what this show's about, to tell people what you've done.
yeah, 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 yeah. Look, I guess, I guess it's the, look, I'm a bit of a lover of the rough diamond, Nick. And I tend to always sort of gravitate to meat and potato style music, um, over sophisticated stuff. It's just, and with my career, it's probably a little bit the same like that. Like, I had some amazing moments and stuff, and big crowds and all that stuff, and played with some unbelievable talent over the years. But what gets me off still is, for example, the Moonshiners Bar we played at Tamworth a few weeks ago. That to me is just a highlight because it was an unknown thing. We ended up with a sold out show. It was me not knowing how Credence would connect with a country music crowd, and seeing the way that it just all meshed and crossed over, and the energy exchange you get with the crowd and stuff. That stuff to me is more important, Nick, than um, accolades or what you've done or who
Yeah,
you've
it's not
played.
even accolades, mate. It's just stories too. Like I know you were telling me that that time you got to work with Mick Fleetwood, it was a great playing experience, but it was also you're juggling personalities when you're doing a gig like that, right?
Well, the main story from that I can't really. I think I have told you off air, but certainly couldn't mention that on air without it affecting my business side of stuff.
No, but the point is
A good time. It was a good time, and
the point is when we meet people like that, and when we meet people like that, and I've met a lot of people in that higher atmosphere as well, and you just try and have a normal conversation, and you don't realize how easy it is to put your foot in your mouth with things that they're precious about and you don't know about.
yeah, 100%. But look, I think at the end of the day, with anyone, no matter what industry they come from or profession, breaking it down just to being human and spending time with people is, I don't know, still the most important thing to me, mate. And I think in terms of, because what the stuff you're talking about and all that is ironically funny in what I do in the business side of stuff with lots of young musicians that had no idea about what I've done in my career. So when I sort of chat to them about trying to help them and not go down necessarily dusty roads that I went down, the road of hard knocks with lots of decisions that I made. Um, a lot of times those kids don't relate because they don't know where I've come from.
And this is part of the reason with opening this chat up with about where you came from a player point of view, because I think it is important when you get up, you're doing the booking agency thing, you're working with young artists coming through. For me personally, it made a big difference to me knowing the people I was working with had a music background. Their passion was music. It wasn't just like business. And I know you personally, I know that music is your passion. And to know that, as they're talking to you about how they get gigs or whatever they need to do for their gigs, to know that you've gone through that whole journey, that you've actually know what it's like to make your living as a player for most of your life. You know how hard it is. You know what the struggles are. You know that you screw things up along the way and you've got to pick yourself up again. To hear them, and the opportunity of this chat is to talk about some of those things that you've gone through, which bring out not Nathan, the visionary and agent, but also that Nathan, the musician who's lived that life. And I think it's just cool to talk about some of the experiences you've had along your way. And I know you don't want to shine a spotlight on that, but just to share some of your experiences that new artists coming through will relate to. I think it's important. So, mate, if you've got any of those stories from your coming up,
I
it's
think,
good to talk.
Nick, the thing I do like to talk about, especially in relation to what I've done in terms of newer, younger artists or people that are interested in development. Um, my whole life has been about being a better person, being a better guitar player, being a better booker, being a better father, being a better partner. All that stuff for me has been a long journey. And the thing that the thing that Carl Blazewski says that is ironically funny to me, but 100% true, is it's not a dress. Life's not a dress rehearsal, you know. So in talking about my career to young people, the best advice I can give anyone is use every post as a winner in terms of, um, are you the best guitar player you can be? How are your human social skills, getting along with other people? Um, do you have stage presence? There's all these one percenters that everyone skips over all the time. But if you constantly think about those things and constantly try and better yourself in all those departments, when an opportunity comes along, you, you're better than 99% of the other people because you're just on this edge where your skills are honed. So the opportunity you're able to seize at the time, and that is, I think that's the most singular, important thing in any individual's music career is
Right. Sure.
how prepared are you, and, to relate it back to you, Nick, and obviously me knowing a lot about your career is, um, and when you open the shows for us that we do when you're doing your show in front of the Creedence show and stuff, and whenever I introduce you, I always tell people about the China thing and stuff, and it's because if someone actually stops and thinks about that, like, here's a guy that has sold more original music into China out of Australia than anyone. Like, millions of people have heard you, and that opportunity you wouldn't have been able to seize unless you were making every post a winner and making yourself the very best you could be. The first time I heard about you was through an ex-partner of mine, and her ex-partner used to come up and watch you at Fridays all the time, and the following of people that used to come up there to watch you in Tuffy is phenomenal. People wouldn't understand. People nowadays wouldn't understand that someone who was perceived as a cover artist that wrote these original songs could have a following like you guys had. It was unheard of,
Yeah, no, exactly.
or
It's
even
cool.
unheard of by today's standards.
Yeah, no, it was a cool time, man. We're right, and we did that well. But break what you said, mate, all really important stuff. And I just want to break it down a little bit. So let's go down first of all when you're talking about your vision, what you told young people. talking about you as a guitarist, and you will undersell yourself because you always do. I know you do, but you're a great guitarist, mate. When with your guitar playing, did you come at it from a technical sort of like technician player, or were you just playing so many songs in so many bands that you just learnt so many things, or where did your skills in guitar playing come from? What was your pathway in that?
I guess it's the thing I'll say about my guitar playing, Nick, is uh, there's a certain genetics that I'm lucky to have, through my family and being a third generation muso. And when you see generational musos, like when I watch your boy, there's something that's God given, if or whatever it is that you believe. There's something that's there that's natural. Um, and one of the biggest things that frustrates me more than anything is when I see someone with natural ability that totally abuses it. You've got to have a certain amount of discipline, even without you realizing what the discipline is, you know. And for example, there's guys I know that, excuse me, that I grew up with that were um, lazy by nature, lazy, didn't share lots of the same views I did. Um, Average guitar players. Then they got into working bands where they played 5 nights a week,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, within 18 months, that guy is an unbelievable guitar player because without him even realizing the discipline of going out playing 4 or 5 hour gigs 5 nights a week for 18 months, all of a sudden he's become disciplined at what he does.
But what's
Uh,
your mental process there? Like I've never been a whaler. I'm a good finger picker. I'm a good kind of James Taylory type player. That's what and I'm a good percussive acoustic player. I asked your dad about his style of playing. He said he bases most of his like work around chord structures. It's like he's much a chord player. Were you like a scale player or a chord player, or where when you get on? And it's a bit of a mystery to me when I watch guys wailing away on doing solos. What's your thought process there technically? Are you coming at it from you've learnt these scales, you know these positions, you know these riffs? Where does that come from within you?
yeah, any guitar player that tells you they don't learn certain positions and modes is a bullshitter because we all do.
Yeah.
I find after once you play guitar for over like 7, 8 years, which is the case with, again, most things with muscle memory,
Yep.
you can be very, very good at something. But after 7, 8 years of doing it with muscle memory, and I don't care what anyone says, this is not debatable for me, but you're a master. You're a master at your craft, at what you do through muscle memory. You can pretty much, you can treat your body and your mind in most states, and you'll still be better than most other people because of your muscle memory. But I find for me, when I play at my best, when I play things, when I hear back and I go, "Wow," it's where I'm in a moment on stage 9 times out of 10, and all the social restraints are gone. Sorry, I just knocked my computer then.
That's all right.
Um,
You're rock and rolling.
yeah, all the social restraints are gone, and it's almost like a sixth sense of what happens on my fingers. To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you, and that's.
Yep.
But I always seem to, when I listen back or watch back videos or whatever from performance, I always tend to think, "Wow, that's cool.
Which
That's
is an important point, mate, because you've done a lot of support work behind original artists. You've
yeah,
done a lot of cover band stuff, tribute band stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to see this. Excuse me, people coming out of that sector and figuring out how they put their band together. And this is a personal comment from me. I've always encouraged people doing the tribute band, the cover band thing, to not try and get too bogged down in trying to repeat totally mirror the recording. I think if people want to hear the CD, they should go put the CD on. When you're up there doing a live show of it, whether it's a Creedence show or me doing my 70s show, whatever, it's about taking those songs, sure, taking the essence of them, but then also bringing your heart and soul and your element into those songs, which will bring in different elements. but
Yep.
that's what kind of makes the live performance. Is that a fair enough statement?
100%. And again, art is so subjective. It just is. All art is subjective. I tend to be probably a little bit more of a scientist with it, in just in terms of I'm very, I'm always very premeditated in what I want to achieve in what I do, even in the music. And then I like the periods of improv within that structure. So, for example, with the when we ran the Jabba cover band that ran for a couple of decades, and we had the residency work in all the big pubs and venues around Southeast Queensland. There was a there was a really good band when I was younger in high school that I used to sneak in to go and watch called Blah Blah Blah. That was run by Leroy Bath, a mate of mine now, Simon Bridgeland, Warren Spiteri, and they were just a kick-ass, hard rocking cover band. But the thing I noticed straight away about them was the continuity and the tempos of the songs. So they played everything really fast,
Mhm.
and there was no break between songs. It was hour sets, hour and 15 sets, slap out back to back, bang. And then when my band came on the scene, there was another cover band called Ramjet that was fronted by a guy called Paul Gallagher. Um, Paul didn't necessarily do that so much with the tempos, but again, his work ethic on stage. He was the first cover guy I ever saw doing hour and a half, 2 hour sets as a cover artist. And again, it's finding inspiration in places sometimes you don't realize, and sometimes it's so close to home you don't. I tend to be. I think about it all, and I watch a lot, and at times, I guess I probably do miss some of the magic that music used to have once upon a time when I was younger. But it's just again for me, it comes from a premeditated place about um it's probably similar with what I do in business too. I see things on a grander scale, grander level, and then work backwards. I sort of reverse engineer things.
So just
Uh,
as a bit of a summary there, mate, for any new artists coming through who might want to, present to Gateway and your business, which we'll get to in a while. If you're sitting down, say maybe, look at a band doing some Nirvana songs or whatever, are you going to be looking for how precisely they copy Nirvana, or are you going to be looking for what's the energy they bring in that reflects the music of Nirvana, but brings their own heart and soul to it?
um, you're opening a big can of worms there, and I guess we're probably going to go down a few rabbit holes tonight, Nick. But again, what I look at is from an artistic sense to start off with is very superficial because it's all about the front end. It's about how much of this band invested in themselves in terms of promo, photos, that side of stuff first is what I look at. And then um, I agree 100% with what you say about some of the greatest bands in the world are not the greatest musicians in the world. They're far
Mm,
from it.
That's
But
often the case.
that's what makes them so great. You two individually, technically are nothing spectacular, but they've all grown up in a band together, playing in a band together for 30 or 40 years now.
And Bob Dylan's not Pavarotti.
Exactly, exactly. So what you're saying about finding your own voice and staying true to that is massively important. It's really important not to chase trends and to be true to yourself. In saying that, the flip side of the coin um, is to look at the successful people within your industry. If you and for example, before when I mentioned blah 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 and Ramjet, they were to me the benchmarks of their eras, being the best cover bands in Southeast Queensland. They were the best. They were the bands that of all the ones I went and saw, I were like, that's awesome. So it's about taking it's not stealing, it's taking inspiration from the way that they sell that, the, the way they conduct themselves with stage presence or whatever. We're all influenced by our environment. But for young bands approaching me, yes, there has to be a sense of authenticity about it. But most of all, how much are you investing in yourself? How much do you want this? Because words are easy as you can tell anyone anything you want to do, but seeing the actions of what people do, um, and I say this to you all the time, Nick, in terms of our pool and the stuff that we do together in business and all that. I don't know anyone that thinks about keeping themselves relevant to the market as much as you do, mate. And they're all those things. I didn't know you when you were a young bloke, so I don't know if they're things you have always had or that you've developed them.
Oh, I'm still a young bloke, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what I mean.
And look, as a performer, this is an interesting chat for me too, because I naturally assume that me as a performer, talking to someone who I know you're a performer, mate, first and foremost, but you're also the agent world now. There's an interesting conversation to have because most agents across the board will, when they look at like a cover act, they're going to look at them wanting to do generally how the songs sound, things like that. It's my perception that I would get. As a performer, I've had a totally different experience. I've never actually wanted to get up there and mirror the songs of the people I play, even though I've had eight albums out. I've always tried to push my original stuff, but reality is I've made my living out of doing cover stuff. That's my cover thing. But when I get up on stage with a cover song, I do try and make it my own. And I've had so many situations where I kind of 90% know the song, but I don't really know the lyrics and I'll sing them a bit wrong. And I've had punters come up to me and say, "Oh, we heard that song you do all the time. It was on the radio the other day and they got the words wrong." It's like, yeah, well, no, I got the words wrong. But yeah, it didn't matter because their experience with me was what was mattered in the moment. And my point of encouragement to young artists coming through is you're putting your bands together. And if it's a tribute band, if it's a cover band, if it's your own original, well, the original stuff obviously speaks for itself. But sure, get it close enough to the vein where people know you're celebrating the songs of that artist and that's basically how they sound. But don't lose yourself in spending too many times trying to get everything clinically right with that performance you hear on the record. As Nath says, get that working to a point where you're playing it so hot and it's really exciting, and then spend so much more of your time then on how you're going to market yourself, how you're going to put your promotions together, how you're going to do all those other things that get you working. Because we live in a space now where I'm trying to write a new original album at the moment, right? And I'm trying to make it something that's really stripped back that I can really do as a real storyteller thing. My I'm okay working on the songs. My battle is working out once I've got that done, if I record it, how am I going to promote it and sell it? In the original space, I don't know. And I think more and more artists are going to have to go down the road where so many of us are going down this stage, which is tapping into the memory lane trip of looking at music people have enjoyed over the last 20, 10, 15, 30, 40, 50 years, bringing that to the market and making a living out of that while we're working on the projects we want to do. But as we're doing that, having like having 40 credence bands, you can have that out there, but it's only going to be the ones that market themselves properly and do those extra things that are going to step through. And I guess I'm just trying to get to a conversation here saying a little bit of, how, does your performance have to be super critical? And I've worked with classical artists and some really technical drummers who are so hard to work with, where I've worked with some great rock and roll drummers who go with the feel. And if I slow down as the lead guy, they slow down and we kind of feel each other's way through. It doesn't have to be technically perfect. It just has to feel good. But then that's the music side. But then there's all these other elements you have to get right to earn a living out of it.
No, you're 100% right. There's the guy that comes to mind when you talk about that, Nick, is one of our good old mates who's, sadly passed away now, but Mark Lockyer, used to do his acoustic solo shows, acoustic punk rock solo or something he used to call it. And the point being was Lockie knew he wasn't one of the greatest singers, he wasn't one of the greatest guitarists, none of that. But what Lockie did was he sold a solo show that was super high tempo from the second he started to the minute he finished, and you couldn't book him within 12 months of advance on 4 or 5 nights of the week because he just was what he brought to the show, the energy he brought, it sold alcohol. And when I say that, in the cover world, we all have a tendency of artists to wanna be, play that feeling emotional thing that we connect with, and it's great, and we wanna do that and feel that. But at the end of the day, 95% of the punters, you might connect one song like that with, but 95% of the punters, when they go out, they wanna go, "Sweet Caroline, da, da,
I'll
da,"
stop singing my set list.
and that's mate, that's, they wanna
Yeah.
smash booze, they wanna forget about their Monday to Friday.
They're there for a good time. They haven't but
Exactly.
in saying that too, if you spend $200 on going to see, I know, a major concert at the entertainment centre, you don't want the Rolling Stones coming out and doing a pile of songs you've never heard of before.
Exactly.
They're in a sense, always said original artists are cover artists in the sense that people know their songs, so they connect with the songs.
Yeah.
Now, if you're an original artist doing the cover scene, and look, I always try and have at least maybe a dozen of my songs in my cover gigs I do, and tell people they're off my albums, please go check them out. I blend them in, but I use the cover songs as bridges to connect to people. That's what gets their attention. When you've got the right attention and they're actually engaged in what you're doing, that's when you can talk about your song. It's
Yep.
all a tool. And original artists are the same. As I say, go see the Rolling Stones doing a whole new 2 albums that no one's ever heard of before, and people will be walking out, I guarantee it,
Yep.
because they wanna hear what they know, they wanna have a good time. And
That's
that's
right.
the magic of music. Music is so much about memory association. It's about connecting what you hear at the time with your friends to the good times you've had in the past. It's like when you're driving in a car, everyone has had that moment where a song comes on the radio that they connect to, and they suddenly turn the volume up. It's just because they connect to that feeling and that emotion. So, man, that's thank you for having a little chat with me around the creative thing, because I'm sure a lot of people who will see this chat will be artists who are looking at putting shows together and putting things together. It's good for them to hear, I think, your thoughts on how that works musically. But you made the transition along the way from being an artist, well, you still play, you're still an artist, to stepping in the business world, and you're now running a business, Gateway Entertainment, and you have a vision for that business, I know, which I'm very excited about. But mate, why did you get into it?
Oh, look, it's a bit of a deep question, Nick. In some ways, to start off with, I fell into it, because I sort of did it. I did it on the side while I was a full-time muso on and off for years. I worked for, um, different pub groups over the years, helping them out. Then I took a job with McLeod Hotels when they had a bunch of, venues in Brisbane. Then I fell into a great friend of mine, Sean Baker, that started the Irish Murphys, legacy with me years ago, long, long, long time ago. Ended up as the national manager for a company called Rockpool, who owned all the Bavarians and Munich bars and El Caminos and burger places and everything. And they needed an umpire band in Brisbane. And basically, at the time, there was really only one or two umpire bands in Brisbane. So they opened the Munich bar and all these Bavarians. And so I sort of found my way into that. At the
Well,
same
you
time,
were in the Noompa band.
umpire bands, yeah.
You were playing in the Noompa band.
No, I used to MC them, but
Okay. Same medical. Didn't see you doing the Noompa band.
they're good guys. I'm still mates with all of them. But started doing that, then sort of fell into it. Cut a long story short, yeah, fell into it. And then venues that I'd worked with, obviously, for decades as a cover musician and an original, um, all aspects of it, was from touring to being a local artist, was they all started coming to me and asking me, "Oh, do you want to come and work for us and book our room, and then more muso mates started jumping in with me, and it was that's kind of the short and tall of it. The other story, which is also true, was Carl Blazanski, my business partner. He actually was the front man in that band I was talking about before, blah blah blah. And I first met Carl when he was in his first band, Trafford, at Dooley's, and we've been mates for a while. And he and I, one night at a Christmas party for a bunch of musos, joked around and said how we thought we could do a better job being being bookers.
It was a drunken concept.
It was, yes, it was. We'd had a couple of sherries under the belt, and then you fast forward and here we are. But look, to be honest with you, Nick, the reason I've stuck at it and the reason I do it is because I have a deep entrenched love for the Australian music industry through my family, and the most important thing to me and Carl and all of our stakeholders with all the different things that we do is we want to leave the Queensland and Southeast Queensland music industry better than what it was for when we started. And, I won't go into mentioning names or companies or anything like that, but as you and I both know, Nick, when we came through, it was run a lot different.
Well,
And
in saying that, mate, it's not an easy job. The agent thing is very difficult. And I will ask you some questions about that because you're kind of the meat and the sandwich in many ways with between venues and artists. And it was different back in the late 80s, early 90s, where you had people like Greg Shaw was looking after me then and looking after Rusty and Keith Urban, stuff like that. And the
yep,
focus was very much on representing the artist. That changed a lot when the Pokies came in and the venues got so much power
yep,
and they really they could control. They didn't need artists, where they just the focus shifted from using artists to draw people into the room as to having something there to supplement the atmosphere rather than driving the atmosphere. So it changed, and artists were stuck in a hard position. And I think all the artists, I've worked through most of them around the town. Yeah, I'm not going to once again mention names, but most of them, and I've got on well with them. Had issues with everyone, but also realize it's the nature of the industry, not the personality. So that's where that sits. But if don't mind me saying, I won't go into detail, but I think I was introduced to you through Rick Zabo. I think it was Rick, a conversation I had with Rick. Um, but it was through the COVID period. And I'd been quite vocal in my little echo chamber about what I saw was happening and how my local industry and my local friends who's artists and venue operators were being mistreated totally. And whether it was, sorry if it wasn't Rick, it'll come to me who it was, but that person said to me, "Oh, you should talk to this other guy, this agent guy, who's been quite vocal and supportive of the industry, Nathan Ward." And I still remember our first conversation. We got on the phone and we talked for a couple of hours, I think, just chatting about the things we believed in and what was happening to our industry. And it became very clear to me you had a vision beyond. And isn't putting other agents down. It was a vision beyond chats I'd had with other people in the industry about which aligned with what I wanted to see happen with our industry. So, Matt, there must have been a point where you went from um, having a drunken conversation, thinking to be an agent, then start doing bookings and all that stuff, to where you are now. And I know from our personal chats that you have a clear vision. You've looked at what happened with our Australian industry back in the 80s and 90s, the way it was very successful, mismanaged in many ways, and that we can move things forward better with a better vision. Was it through that COVID time you started thinking deeply about those things, or had you thought about it before, or is it a recent thing, or what's been your progression into being what I call a visionary for moving forward?
uh well, first of all, thanks, Nick. And the I did meet you. We're going to go back a little bit further because I did
Well,
meet you
I'd met you before, but we hadn't spoken
a few
properly yet.
times, and then the first time we actually got to hang out was at
Angry
Winnamaris,
show.
Angry
Yeah.
Anderson gig we were doing. And there was there's a few of your mates. The Wally Lewis was there that night.
Wally
Tomo.
Tomo was there, Brownie was there, and you had Jeff Lovejoy playing with you as well, mate. The mighty Jeff Lovejoy.
That's right. Then he was like, Nick, man. So
Well,
it was
Jeff produced co-produced with Michael Flanders my '97 album, Four Poet Steps, and we recorded some of that at the Arctic Studio, and some at most of it at Red Zed's, which is where Jeff was. And of course, Jeff was the guy who worked with so many local artists coming through, and actually missed his big break when he was on holidays, and Regurgitator came through, and he tossed that off to his mate to do that job. But
yeah.
Jeff is one of the best engineers globally that I've ever met, and I've worked overseas with great
Yeah, no,
engineers, and he's up there.
he is.
He's right up there.
He's my guitar brother. I love him a great deal. That guy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I know the feeling's mutual. It's good.
Yeah. So we had that connection that day, but I think we only got to. I think I didn't have my glasses with me. I didn't have my sunglasses on. I felt like a dick backstage wearing my sunglasses and all that, but it was just I didn't have my proper
It was
glasses.
great fun, mate. That was one of the better parties we had after the gig backstage. So it was good fun. It was good fun.
And Angry was great, mate. It's like such a.
It's great. It's good.
Yeah.
It's been some great stories. It's bloody Aussie legend.
And see you playing there, and I kind of I didn't click when we were honestly when we were talking on the phone. It didn't click to me that I'd met you back then, and it was only later I realized we'd met then, because I saw you as a great guitarist on that gig, great muso. But then when we got talking about the music industry in our chat, that was when I went, this guy knows what we align with our thoughts in many ways. So once again, getting back to your.
Well, yeah. So during the COVID period, Nick, we all hit hard times. I was lucky that I still had friends working regionally in some areas. I was lucky that the company was up and running and going well. But what happened really fast was during the first lockdown, one of the kids I was helping look after from North Queensland and had brought him down to Brisbane to start him in the cover circuit and stuff, had taken a loan out before the lockdowns for a car, and then hit depression and took his own life. And what I realized really fast from that sobering moment was that we as that old company reached out to we tried to reach out to most of our artists instantly to make sure the mental health was good with them all. And then we started a non-profit organization called Muso for a Mower or something like that it was called. And all the news, all the 710 newses and everything got behind it. And thanks to my old cousin-in-law, Maddie, who got me the first TV interview with that, and then they just exploded. So all the musos that had fallen through the cracks that were suffering, we got whippersnippers and mowers for, and they started going out and doing cash jobs for people that needed their lawns mowed. So the news and everything got behind that, continued on over the next couple of years with the stuff that happened, and then you and I really connected over the double standards that we had under the government at the time, which was Palaszczuk, I think.
Yeah, mate, definitely Palaszczuk. And I know we put the march was put together where musos got together, and unfortunately, different musos across our little town didn't all unite, but people who knew you and everything came along to that march, and we did a great job in doing that. And I was going through a similar thing. I was having, other artists I knew calling me up, panicking about, they were worried about going to lose their house, which some of us did. The wedding marriages were splitting, suicidal thoughts were happening, and no one was given a shit from the official side. We have no union, we have no political power, we have nothing that represents us, and we were all trying to get out there and just get our voices be heard. And this is something we need to look at moving forward. The whole gig economy actually has a powerful impact on the Australian economy. It's not just musicians, it's people working in venues, it's taxi drivers, it's people cooking, chefs, all these things. We're represented by nobody. And when it came to COVID, and mate, I'm saying this, I'm not putting words out there for you, but I'm saying this, we weren't represented by anybody, and I
No.
think that's something we have to address somehow in the future. I don't know the solution for that. I talk about it often, but we need to look at that. But that was a conversation we started having, was like, how do we look after each other better through times like this as musicians? And I'm sure a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, you're in an industry where, there's no future like that." But it's not, I don't do a gig like a job. What I do is who I am. I'm really blessed in that way. It's really tough to do it because I don't have a pathway. I don't have a set wage every week. I have no, health benefits or anything like that along the way. But I wake up every day being able to struggle through what I do, but being me. And I think that's what most musicians are. We live our life and we're blessed to live our lives, but along with that comes with hard times and uncertainties. Okay, quick commercial break here while we're doing the show. I have to thank our sponsors for today's show, which is me. Big shout out to Nik Phillips for, mate, I just couldn't do this show without you. So it's really good. But look, if you are enjoying the stuff I'm doing in capturing local stories and trying to get more word out about what is happening in our local communities and would like to help out, come on board as a sponsor. Please send me an email and let me know. My email's down here. You'll see it, Aussie Local and Live at gmail.com. Reach out to me. We'll work out something where you can help me and I can help you, and we can tell more stories and we can make it all work, which is really, really cool. If you don't want to be a direct sponsor, maybe you just want to help out by going to my tip jar on my website. Just put your your camera on the QR code there, and it will take you to my website. All the dollars come here, and everything goes towards helping marketing this whole little thing I'm trying to do. So that's it. If you'd like to be a sponsor, let me know. If you can help out in other ways, let me know. If you have a story to tell, email me, and I'd love to get you on the show. Anyway, back to the show. That doesn't mean we shouldn't get help in doing that, because so many people you talk to, everyone says music is so important to their life. Well, where do you think that music comes from? It's my crew. It comes from my crew, the ones who are doing it every day without support, without benefits, without anything else. And then one of the things that really pissed me off is, I think about a year before COVID hit, we'd had the droughts and the fires. And I was doing a thing with ABC Radio in the piazza, help raising money for the rural firefighters, which I strongly believe in. I really support the rural firefighters, and I will donate my time. I sang a song live for them with the whole ABC crew doing all of that stuff. But when COVID hit, none of them gave a shit about musicians. Honestly, they didn't care. And they didn't do anything. No, I didn't see one rally or one fundraiser for musicians from those other sectors. Now, I'm not going to hold that against them. I will still go out there and support rural firefighters. I'm not that type of person. But I did see that, people say they love music, but they really don't understand where music comes from. And at the end of the day, people don't care that much about musicians. That's what was my experience with the whole thing.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with all that, Nick. I think until there's a day when the industry can stand together as a whole and work out its fragmentation.
Mate, I honestly don't think we have the uniting power to do that, because we're all sole traders and small businesses doing that. Our industry needs to get help from, this is what we do need help from the government with, is helping us get structure to look at our industry as a commercial sector that has value beyond just arts, just like feeling good. We are a business sector that needs to be supported, that can help the economy, that while we're helping the economy, we're not just ripping people off, we're actually putting spirit back into the Australian spirit. So I think that's where we do need help, if anything. But mate, I won't drag you down that rabbit hole. I do want to get back to, and I think people who will watch this will be people who really don't understand some of them will be people who don't understand how our industry works. In our game, you've got the artists, you've got the venues. In between them, you've got artists might have a manager. There are agents. You've got accountants, everything else around the shop that play their roles. But mate, what is the role of an agent?
Primarily the role of an agent. Okay, I'm going to give you what my view of the role of an agent is. my role, I believe, is to, on my watch, is to nurture the coming together of both venue and artists, um, because you can't have one without the other, and you can't. That thing you were talking about earlier, being the meat in the sandwich, that's one way to look at it. It's a thankless job being a booker, but you've got to be okay with that, in knowing that you're kind of the
Yeah,
you're
before you say, I think
gate.
there's a difference. Like calling yourself a booker is probably wrong because a booker is just someone who puts in the date and does all that stuff. You do a lot more than that. So I think, and let's stay on the role of an agent rather than the booker, because I think a booker is just someone who puts someone in a job and ticks the boxes. You've got more concerns that you have to work through during your day as an agent. Fair enough.
Sure. So, um, basically, you're responsible for supplying, in terms of the cover sense. You're Well, not just the cover sense, it's originals too. You've got to supply the acts that are going to bring the people into the venue and tick the bar over, so that that venue can turn a profit, so that venue can continue booking live music for the unforeseeable future or foreseeable future. Then you've got to, in terms of longevity, you need to make sure that there's always new talent coming through. So you've got to source that from grassroots level, help develop those artists, then send those artists out onto the circuit. Um, it's on the surface. Look, on the surface, it doesn't look like it's that much, but to be a successful um, agency in Australia, you certainly need massive amounts of work ethic. And I can't speak for everyone, but be a man of your word. Do do what you say you're going to do, and treat people how you want to be treated. It's really that simple. And in saying that, yes, there are always going to be times when you ruffle feathers because you're being honest, um, with venue management, owners, or artists. And a lot of the times they don't want to hear what you've got to tell them. But if you've done your job properly, they know where you're coming from is to is a better benefit for them and the overall big picture.
And mate, I
Um,
know this will be a tough question for you, but I think, as mates, we can have honest discussions. I know there'll be certain questions musicians will want me to ask of you. Um, in your position, like as I said, going back to the 80s, 90s, it was easier for Shorey in that they represented the artists they sold us into venues.
Yeah.
The game's changed. Would you say now that your pressure is on you to represent more the venues or the artist?
there's no right answer to that, Nick. It's a
Hmm.
it's a complete. The best ones are the ones that have a balance for both. Being able to supply the right act to the right venue. And we are all, no matter what anyone says, every entertainer are egotistical creatures. And that's not a negative thing. It's a really good, healthy thing. But sometimes with some artists, that ego then can blind the relevancy of what the act is. And like, and I'll use this for an example. Someone that's playing morning melodies to 85 year olds doing waltzes in the RSL club can't go in and do the Full Moon Hotel on a Friday and Saturday night in front of 18 to 30-year-olds that want to pump.
Yeah, and I think that's from
Lots
an
of those,
artist point of
lots of those artists will say to you, "Oh man, I could do that.
yeah,
I could do that." And you've
yeah.
got to be able to have that honest conversation and say, "Look, that's not your pigeonhole. That's why I'm not going to put you in there." And there's there's always fallouts from that.
Well,
But
I think that from an artist's perspective, I think it's fair to say that if you're doing like the morning melodies, that's what you're doing is that act. If you want to be doing the other shows, package yourself up totally different, so you have something different to sell. And I'm not going to ask you to say this, but I will say it on kind of your behalf. I'll often call you up and say, Nate, how's your day going? And you say, oh, I'm getting swamped, mate. I'm getting swamped, and I'm expecting you to say this venue screwed you up, or that venue screwed you up. But often it works out that, oh, this artist has pulled out of this gig at the last minute, and this artist hasn't got this done they were going to do, and this artist hasn't happened. And it is a huge, huge truth that the standard of business level, and I'm talking this as an artist,
Yeah.
and this is not Nathan talking, guys. This is me talking. I'm not going to put it in his mouth, but I have seen it that back in the 80s and 90s, one thing that did happen was we had great bands because they were working 5, 6, 7 nights a week, but also because you're working 5, 6, 7 nights a week, you actually ran your business better. You did your promo better. You worked the venues better, all that stuff. So when we lost all of that, we got into the lazy frame of just turning up and doing a gig, standing in the corner and expecting to get paid more because we're standing there, not promoting anything, not drawing more people in. And we're good. Hey, pay us more. Doesn't work that way, right? You've got to be lifting your game. And you say to me so often that artists kind of let themselves down by not doing the 360-degree job they should be doing. Is that I don't,
Well, it's a fine balance point, Nick, especially in the cover industry where, again, some artists feel they shouldn't need to advertise or, um but at the end of the day, the acts that are the most successful, that get booked out the furthest out and get the most money, are always the ones that know how to promote themselves. For you and I, this is the biggest change in the industry I've seen for guys like you and I, where I started. For me to book a gig, I used to have to go to the printers, print out posters, um, do a press release, do a bio, take pictures, send them into the gig guides, and then one day of the week, early in the week, I'd have to go out and do poster runs, and I'd gaffer tape. I'd sellotape posters to telegraph poles, put them up in cafes, staple them to chalkboards wherever I could, and that's what you had to do.
mate,
Nowadays, nowadays, it's
going,
all tip of your fingers.
mate, going back to even before your time, mate, because you're a young whippersnipper. But back in Her Majesty's days, I had a mailing list. We used to do the whole real mail out thing. And I think I had about 1,500 people on my mail out list. And that, of course, they tell their friends, and that 1,500 actually, you got to reach like 6,000 people, whatever.
Yeah.
And I drew a regular 400 or 500 people at that venue every weekend. But mate, that was in those days. Literally, it would take 2 weeks to do up your newsletters, get them printed at whatever I can't remember what the print shop was back then. You fold them up, you stick them in an envelope. You buy enough stamps to do that, so it's costing you half your week's wages to do the stamps that week. You put them on, you mail them out. But I get so many people saying they love getting their newsletters, and they put it on their fridge where I was playing all that month, what was going on, all that stuff. But they were the things you had to do. And so you got that marketing end, but then there's also a skill set that you have to learn in those in local gigs, particularly from a soloist point of view, where you've got to think on your feet. And I'm going to blow my own trumpet a little bit here, but I did a gig, mate, on the weekend for one of Ned Walker's gigs at Easy Times. And I was in there, and there's a bit of a crowd in there when I got there, but they'd kind of left, and there were like 6 ladies left in there in their 50s who were teachers who they were about to start work again, and they just wanted to have a blowout together, and they were pretty, on the edge by that time. They were playing darts at the end of the room, and I just, my generation, I kind of knew what songs to play from, so I started that out, and I had them happening straight away. And they turned around and said, "Oh, can you play some Bee Gees or ABBA?" And I'm like, I had some tracks to go with that, so I said, I got a Bee Gees song I do, but I don't normally do ABBA, but I'll toss it in there. Did that. They're dancing, the 6 of them just down the front of the room. Next minute, 12 people come rocking into the room, and it ended up being some people who were down the restaurant down the road who'd heard my voice, and I actually had played at their wedding 2 years ago, and they came down and were in, and next suddenly you had like, 20 people dancing down front. And then another 2 groups came in because they were just walking past, and we filled the room out. We had a great night, and the staff are saying, "We never have this happen here." But, knowing how to read a room, knowing how to work a crowd, knowing how to do those things on top of your promo are all the things that are going to get you booked. So, mate, this is you and me as an artist and agent tossing things back and forward. I hope that's okay talking about that. But
Absolutely.
and that's the same conversation I could probably have with most agents around town. But now, mate, before we close off, I do want to get to. I have a vision for you and the things we've discussed about where you're going to grow way above where you are now. You've got ideas for for the Australian industry internationally and all those things, what we can be doing. Mate, I'd like you to just focus for a little bit on what your big picture intentions are. And I don't want to give away your plans or anything like that, what you're looking at doing, but what is it that Nathan Ward wakes up each day and says, okay, I can do this job where I'll book artists in, I'll work with artists, I'll go through the grind, I'll do that stuff, I'll make that happen. But I think I can actually make the industry better. What's your intentions there, mate?
Uh, so this is probably the toughest question you've asked me, Nick.
I'm a tough interviewer, mate.
Well, yeah, yeah. Look, I think, as I said to you before, the legacy for us is to make sure that there's still an industry there for us in 20 and 30 years'
But are you
time.
talking about a local cover band industry? Are you talking about a wider industry where we've got an export product and all those things?
So you obviously know a lot of inside things, and there's lots I probably don't feel comfortable to share, but
I
the
don't want you to share anything specific.
big
I'm talking about a
look,
wider vision, mate.
I'll always bring back. I'll always bring things back to the meat and potato stuff that I told you about before, Nick. It all starts with a rough diamond, and the grassroots level stuff. The company will never ever leave or walk away from, and that will be for generations to come because of the way that we've set things up. I get off
So your
on
grassroots is going to be the cover band, local scene, making sure people are working, making a living. Yep.
developing artists
Yep.
from, you know, finding the kids the way and ways we do to develop them through to becoming professional artists. There's kids that I get to go out and see sometimes now that when I stand there and watch them, I can't explain the feeling I have. What the feeling of being having just that small part of being a bridge for that person to help. And so that side of the business will never leave. Um, as you already know, Nick, there's plans and things for our company to keep growing nationally and internationally, um, which we will continue. You know, I'm a highly driven, hungry person, and I have a lot of hustle about what I do, and so does
Mate,
Cup. And
let me rephrase a bit, try and make it a bit easier for you because I know that it's hard for you to explain what you're saying, but in the 80s and 90s, we had such a fertile grassroots circuit where people were playing cover bands. Now those cover band things, you got Powderfinger, you got Keith Urbans, you got Savage Garden, all those. Well, Savage Garden weren't so much doing the cover band thing, but you had all this fruit of Chisel were a cover band when they started. You know, they were a Zeppelin band. You know, they all grew out of that fertile ground. So at the heart, to me, I know you're saying you're going to try and grow that fertile ground at the grassroots. Moving back to where we were, and if we can get some support from government, as I said, to help us look at change the focus on our industry and help that grow, do you believe we can get back to a point, and I'm with your company being involved in the growth of being a much more stronger industry for selling music, original music, domestically and internationally?
100%, there are some stepping stones that need to be put back in place for that. Things that you and I have spoken about that are no secret that I'm happy to share with you now and for people that are watching. But without things like Hey Hey It's That Day, Countdown, um, my generation had Recovery on ABC on Saturday mornings, um, Rage. Without cultural shows, magazines, radio shows, TV shows, without those things showcasing Australian music and comedy talent, we're always going to be pushing shit uphill. But it hasn't halted the um, Australian artists and the talent that are there, that's still there.
And it hasn't halted, and it hasn't halt and it hasn't halted the consumption of music. People are listening to more music than ever before.
Yep.
But we just have lost the models on how we commercialize that because streaming, we lost models around that.
100%. And this is there's a reason festivals have fallen over left, right, and center in the last 10 years. It's not one thing, it's several things. Part of it's within the music industry itself that holds some part of the responsibility. Other parts are around government red tape and how much it costs to actually put those things on. If you're a businessman and you've got $1 million to invest, the last thing you would put it into is a music festival in Australia.
Sure.
It's bonkers. You're not going to make a return on it. It's a risk, a massive risk. And there's 10,000 other avenues you could put that money into and make way better money. So until we can come together and look at some of those issues, it's going to be tough for us. And that was, I sort of had hoped that when Peter Garrett came into federal parliament, that some of that stuff was, going to be drawn to the surface. But at the end of the day, the way that politics
They
is,
stitched him up there.
you can't, no individual is stronger than a caucus. So,
That's you're politically talking. America is obviously so screwed because they have corporate interests running their country. We have the party system here, and you get people like Peter going in with the right intentions, and because they don't sort of fit into the box, so they'll set him up with a roofing scenario where he gets screwed over from day one and can't do anything. That's how politics works. But I do believe we still have America's kind of screwed. I don't know how they get around their situation, but we do have the situation where we can vote out our local politician and affect parties. We have that power still to vote out our local people, and so we still need to find that way within the gig economy, which makes up a huge. The gig economy can swing votes in every election if we can find a way to do that. That's a tangent there, but mate, I think that one of one of the things that attracted me to work with you was that you did have a vision, and I also think it's fair to say, as you've been talking about your vision of how we don't, we need to grow the grassroots, which I think is vitally important, but we then need to figure out what our new models are and how we expand, and you've got plans for doing that. But I also do think, mate, I get people calling me up, and I'll be honest with you, people from other musicians saying, I know you have a bit to do with this gateway mob, I've heard this and that about them and this thing and that and that. And I just, personally, I just tell them the truth. Good friends of mine, great mates, we're working on things together, and everything they've said to me, they've, delivered on, and it's been a really good journey. But in our industry, you've got Chinese whispers. Someone will say something about, maybe they put out a gig for you and something went wrong and all that. And and it happens with every agent. I've had the same said to me about every agent around town. And I don't bag any agent around town. And some of them I've got, little respect for, but I'm not going to bag an agent because I know the difficulty of what everyone's doing. And I've always said that I won't go out there and bag anyone, but my relationship with you, I stand up and say, I really believe in what Gateway's doing, and I'm putting that out there at this point in time now, saying that now. But I think it is fair to say from our conversations, as you come up with ideas on how we can work on growing our industry out of the grassroots, it's something that you would like to actually work with other agencies and other things in our industry to build as well. It's not a one-man vision. This is something for our whole industry. Is that fair to say?
100%, brother. Sorry, I've got someone knocking on my door, Nick. Give me 2 secs, mate.
It's probably the police, mate.
Yeah, I'm doing a podcast.
What?
Yeah. Do you want to be on the podcast?
No, I'll just.
I thought
Yeah,
it's
come in.
Princess Leia.
No, it's because I was
Come on,
here.
princess.
Pick you up. Bye.
Oh,
Maybe.
hey.
Okay. Sorry, Nick.
No, mate, well, family's the most important thing.
So
I was talking about
Nick, there's certain stigmas that come with it, and that's it is what it is, mate. There's nothing there's no way getting around that. And as I've said to you many times over the last few years, the reason I love America is because they're encouraging with each other. within industries, there's not the tall poppy syndrome that we have in Australia.
They've lost it a bit and become so divisive. I'm not sure that where they have that the same.
Yeah,
idea.
that's probably true too. That's probably true.
But mate, if people watching this are interested in what you're doing and how they work with Gateway, what's the best way? If you're an artist out there and you're like, okay, this guy sounds interesting, like kind of what he's talking about, how do I get to work with him and get gigs? What's the process?
Look, I'd say, depending on where you're at, if you're brand new in your grassroots level and you haven't done gigs before, get along to one of Dan Whittam's open mic nights. He has several of them every week across Southeast Queensland.
And I have a past episode, a couple episodes where I've interviewed Dan. So go back through my episodes and check them out, guys. You'll see Dan's story.
Dan's an integral part of our business and our music industry in Queensland. He and I share the same MO about making sure we are continuing to grow that next generation through. If you've already started gigging and you've got stuff together, jump on the Hot Giggity, register yourself on the platform of Hot Giggity, and then flick us through an email at info@Gateway and include as much promo as you can. And one of the staff will go through it, check it out, and that's how you get added to the roster.
Nathan, if there are people out there who are working through, working musicians, work through another agency, are they still able to contact you without sort of damaging their relationship with their agency and gigs and stuff like that?
We're happy to work with anyone. We've never asked anyone to be exclusive to us. It's not how we work. We if we can't book you, we want you to still work and be able to earn a living. So lots of the things where Carl and my hands were tied when we were younger, we've made sure that we give that leeway to other artists. It's really important for you to earn money and pay your rent.
Yeah. Mate, if someone's watching who's working with a venue or works out a venue and they're looking for how they better manage their entertainment roster, how can you help a venue?
It always starts with face-to-face. As you know, we like to get out to venues a lot too and actually put eyes on the ground during operational hours to see what it is.
And get kicked out and see how their security works. Is that right?
No, not this business partner. But no, we like to see the demographic of the room, what they've got, where they could grow into, all those things, and then hold those conversations. It's we're not the agency to ring and set and forget. If you want to just stick someone in the corner, we're probably not the agency for you. If you have a genuine interest in wanting to make money for your business by the platform of live music, then we're the people you want to talk to.
Is it fair to say that you design a strategy with them on how they can move forward over the next 12 months?
100%. Every venue we look after has different goals and expectations and genres and patrons. So, as I said, it's about finding the right fit for the right venue. And
I think one thing that what some venues won't realise is like there are artists coming into the market who maybe haven't got all this stuff together. You got your B-list artists and your A-list artists. You can walk them through that process where they're working up to having their A-list artists as they build their crowd, where they get to that better platform. Is that right?
100%. We work on the whole 360-degree. Carl's MO all the time is about being a 360-degree artist, and that's what he's always instilling in all the new younger kids coming through, making sure you're on top of your promo or you're posting out, and we give examples of other acts and stuff that are doing that. And, we may not always be able to pick up the phone first go when you ring us, but at some point we will always try and get back to you.
Okay. Mate, thank you so much for your time tonight. It was really good. And, obviously we're mates and I knew we were going to have a good chat anyway, but I know you're off to Tassie this weekend with Credence. So anyone down Tassie, where are you playing at down there?
We do Shearwater Resorts Friday night, Easy Tiger on Saturday, and then my favourite gig in Australia on the Sunday at Longley International that's sold out. It's awesome. I love that venue. It was built by the Wolf Brothers' dad, the back beer garden stage area. So
Connected to relate
our mate Big John from
Big John, yeah.
Sandgate and Redcliffe, his dad was the one that built all that back bigger, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I was hoping you'd be able to come this time, Nick, but maybe next time.
Mate, I know it's an opening act. I'm disposable, so it's like I understand that. It's kind of like, put your heart and soul out there and get tossed aside. I get how it works, but but man, my last trip to Tassie, I did an act for a while with James Blundell, the the god of country music in Australia, so he says. Myself and Carl Brodie, Carl was a Scottish guy who lived in Australia for a long time, and he passed away, unfortunately. But Carl was just an amazing songwriter and just a wonderful bloke. But we put an act together called The Like-Minded Felons. And what we'd do is we'd go on and we'd do like a 20-minute spot each. And then we'd all come on the stage together and we'd kind of jam with these songs with the three of us. And we went to places you don't normally go to, like we did in Northern Territory. We did Groot Island and Gove and Kakadu and all that stuff. But down in Tassie, we went to Launceston, Hobart, not so far off. The place on the west coast, went across the mountain just as a snowstorm was hitting, and they closed the road, but we got through. And we were going through, and there was like snow falling everywhere. And we had three of us and two production guys who were both from Queensland. So we got out with our shirts off and we're running around the show and all that, and in the snow and all that. And we got to the top where like the hillbillies are. And like, the da 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 da. You're thinking, will we get through here alive? We made a pact. We said, if the hillbillies come after us, we're going to throw Blundell out the car because he's famous and they want him. And we'll just make a run for it. So we were willing to sacrifice Jimmy. Then we went to Zeehan on the east coast. Then we went up to north to another place, and we had the most fun. Blundell would just kind of be in a fetal position on the stage at the end of each gig, just kind of having drunk too much. But I shouldn't maybe say that, but he did. And it was just so much fun, just three blokes. And the music we got to play when we were playing together with just the three of us, we pull out like a Rolling Stone and things like that and go crazy on harmonies. And it was like a living experience of that Neil Young album, Tonight's the Night, where everyone's a bit wasted and you're just playing your heart and soul out and probably a bit rough and ready, but it was so good. And I just loved Tasmania. It was so good. And mate, I know you guys will get into a lot of trouble down there and have a great time. And yeah.
Nah, thanks, man. I love getting to Tassie. I've got some family down around Wynyard and Smithton, and so it's always good to catch up with all those folk. And they're just crowds are great in Tassie, mate. They're just the best people. They're just awesome people. I love Tassie.
Mate, why I asked John for the chat tonight was I've had people asking me about Gateway, because obviously you had to transition from Jabba to Gateway. You set up your thing, your vision, where you're going. And a lot of people had questions about it in our local industry. A lot of Muse said, what's Nathan really like and everything? I said, he's great. We're good mates, and I believe in what he's doing, and I'm backing myself in saying that now. And we met accidentally through the COVID thing. There's other stories behind that, how we end up working together fully, but you've not wavered from the things you're telling me, and our vision for where we want the industry to go, I think can be summed up by saying we have to, all of us old dudes like me and middle-aged dudes like you and everyone else, we need to ensure that our grassroots industry gets refertilized, gets repowered up, so that young artists coming through can work 3 or 4 nights a week and make their living out of it, not have to be working day gigs doing what they do, but just focus on their passion. Then we need to help them put together projects where maybe they earn a bit more money than just local money. And while we're there doing that, we need to figure out how do we help grow their original content and their ability to support artists internationally or get their music out internationally. How do we start looking at getting government support to help our industry, to look at how do we, will any politician ever help us go in and fight against the streaming companies to get a better return for artists? How do we make sure we get back to the days where if an international artist is coming through Queensland, they have to have a Queensland artist on the bill? They have to give them opportunity to market and sell their merchandise at the same time? How do we get back to having local radio, even though radio is not so important these days, still playing more local content? And how do we get back to having festivals running, which aren't just getting money and grants from the government to pay international artists, but actually pay local artists to make them superstars? How do we use all our united energies to help grow our industry? And then most importantly, how do we get that message across and work better with the punters, the people who love music, who come out to see us play, and encourage them to come out better? How do we get venues to actually set up rooms better, so we're not playing around 25 TVs and all this, but actually set up rooms so that music can do a job where we're drawing people in and making the venue more money while they've got their poker. You don't have to say this, mate. This is me saying, while they've got their poker rooms ripping off people who are getting too old and are dying off and losing that market, we need to get back to how we get entertainment to become an entity that actually brings people into the pubs, gets people buying meals, buying drinks, and buying tickets, doing all those things that make more money for the venues. And some of those things were my opinion. Some of those things you have to work with the hotel chains and all that stuff. I understand that stuff, and I don't expect you to speak about that. But mate, the fact you're willing to sit down and chat with me and expose who you are, who this dark, sinister character of Nathan Ward is, how old surfer dude from down Cronulla way who came to his senses, came up to Queensland, kind of lost his senses and still supports Canberra. I didn't mention that bit. I sort of thought I'd throw that in, but still. But
It's actually Maroubra I'm from too, Nick.
I know you're a bra boy, mate. I know.
Gonna have a heart attack saying it's Cronulla.
I didn't know whether you wanted that. There's a special coming out about you soon, apparently. About
yeah,
you would have been one of the little grommets back in those days.
I was, mate. I was.
Yeah. No, I remember. I was not a real surfer, but in my holiday times, we'd go down. My nana pop lived at Tweed Heads, and we'd go down to Coolangatta, and I had my surfboard, and I was like a hack surfer, but it always pissed me off where I'd be trying to, this is probably about 16, 17, I'd be trying to get the wave, and these little 11, 12-year-olds would just be jumping up and catching every wave that came along and cutting in at everybody and just mastering the wave, and I'm thinking, how the hell did those dudes do that? So I was a pretend surfer, and my big surfing claim to fame was, we had a big storm off Tweed Heads there at one stage, and I was stupid enough to go out on Greenmount and try and surf these waves that were way too big for me, and my board got smashed on the rocks, and that's my my health just kicking in there. It's medicinal, by the way. I lost my board, and I took it to the local board shop and said, "Is this worth anything?" They said, "Well, not really. We'll give you a bit of a trade." And I was able to get a boogie board, and I had some flippers. Anyway, next day I went out at Rainbow Beach at Coolangatta, and the surf back in those days broke way, way out. Like, went out there, must have kicked out about 150, 200 meters. Got to where the waves were. Next thing, ding, 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 the shark alarm bells going off. And I'm like, oh, bloody hell. So I had to kick back into the surf and into the beach. And this dude was kind enough in his surf ski to sort of paddle behind me. And I got back to the beach, and I was stuffed, man. I was rooted. And I just said, I think I'll just stick to music and get this surfing thing.
Yeah, muscle memory is a beautiful thing, Nick.
My brain memory is a problem for me. I never had much of that. But anyway. Mate, have a great trip on the weekend. Thank you for your time on doing this.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Mate, hang there for a minute. I'll talk to you afterwards, but I'll just stop the recording. Everyone, I'll put some links up for Gateway Entertainment, their website, into this thing down below. Got any questions, send them an email. Got any other questions, just message me too. If you're a young artist coming through and you want to know how to deal with talking to agents or getting that stuff, please message me. I'm happy to have a chat with you. I'm happy to share my experience with you and how you get to the point where you don't want to go talking to Nathan Carl too early. You really don't. You don't want to go when you're just kind of too early for the game. Understand the realities of it, that you need to have your gear. You need to know how to set up your gear. You need to have, if you're doing this, want to go in there and say you can do a cover gig, you got to have 50 songs up your sleeve, at least. You got to know how to present yourself to the venues. And they're not things that Nathan can't have time to talk to you about. I'm happy to talk to anyone about that stuff. So just give me a buzz if you want to talk about that stuff. But thanks, Nath. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.